So I'm incredibly honored to be here, and the reason why is that I consider Mindvalley to be one of the most important players in this space in terms of accelerating the direction of humanity. So thank you so much for having me. So learning from Lisa, I've got my snap. My snap is I accelerate awakening with technology to help people feel confident and loving and in tune and to unlock their gifts. And who do you know who is interested in doing that? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. So I have a couple of things that might seem counterintuitive to start out with, but it will frame the talk. And we're going to move really fast. I'm going to leave my slides with Mindvalley so you guys can get them. The number one is that awakening is easy. It's integration that's hard. Number two, the problem with technology is not that it's bad, it's that it's not good enough yet. And this is the most exciting time to be alive. And each of you is incredibly precious. I was so inspired by my conversations with people and the dedication of this group to awakening. And so when we get to as we move through the presentation, you'll see how important you specifically are. The structure is what's going on in society, our research on awakening, and then from a technology standpoint, what to expect. And I have this in here so that you can really be inspired, so you can see how much momentum is happening in the world around technology to support human development. So one of the questions I start with is, what is the next human agenda? Yuval Harari, who wrote Homo Deus and Sapiens, he says that it is longevity, happiness, and augmentation. And happiness is sort of a interesting word in that it doesn't really capture it. I think that it's more about fulfillment, meaning, belonging, purpose, self-awareness, self-knowledge. But when you look around the world today, it seems like there's so much conflict going on. And people wonder, and they feel at a loss, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But if you look at many objective measures, life is better now than it has been in many, many years. Like, this is the best time to be alive, from electricity to girls in school to GDP. I mean, it's an extraordinary time to be alive. Meanwhile, there is the rise of AI and the software line, and you might have heard a lot about this. And so we're moving into a place, as we start to use more and more software and automation, that we're going from doing to being. But the thing is that our school system, most of our traditional infrastructure, is designed to get people ready for this and not this. And so this guy knew we weren't really good at being. And then MIT just put out a report where they looked at what were the jobs, what were the skills that one would need to be employable by 2030. And they were all inner skills. They were all things that you get better at based on your level of self-awareness and your ability to connect with one another. And so the work that you're doing and the work that Mindvalley is doing isn't just about your personal development. This is about the future of the human race, the future of work. So the question that I spend a lot of time thinking about is, how do we wire humanity for the future, and what does that mean? So all of our technologies are on exponential curves, but human development is not. How do we answer this question? It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited by Mindvalley, because the platform that they have and the Quest system that they're putting in place are ways to put human development on an exponential curve. And so the gap between the two is dangerous, and it's showing up. Other people have talked about these stats, so I won't go deeply into them, but these conditions are accelerating around the world, across countries, across cohorts, across cultures. And some of the things, loneliness is has a greater implication on health than even obesity. And so, we're in the crunch. And there's many people who feel, well, I'm not depressed, I'm not lonely, I'm not stressed. It's not really a problem. But one of the things, there's a lot of things about Facebook, but because they have so much psychological data at scale, there's a few things that have been proven, one of which is emotional contagion, which essentially is when you behave in a certain way, whether it's loving or aggressive, it shows up and affects other people. That's something that in our communities, we talk about, and it's in many ways, it's something that we would like to believe, but I am here to tell you that it is absolutely true. So they did this study where they changed people's feeds to show happy post and sad post, and then monitored the people with those accounts to see whether they then posted happy or posted sad. And they posted sad. It was incredibly irresponsible because the people who were on the sad feeds, if they had been on the line of something, it could have had devastating results. But what it did do is it proved that the way that you feel and the way that you show up makes a really big difference. And so, for better or for worse, that's what it did. And so we're in a place where we're seeing populism sweep the globe. When I look at this, what I see is fear. These people are afraid. Up underneath all of these belief systems, they're afraid. But the last 10 years and the last year has been one of the greatest in human achievement. So it's absolutely clear that we need a scalable, accessible, affordable means to up-level the psychology of the human race. So this is the well-being spectrum, the way that we see it at my lab and in the community that I lead. And so, there's probably areas that you're more interested in than others, but you'll see on the far side is human support. This is stress, depression, anxiety, people with acute needs. In the middle is what I call the human condition. This is happiness, loneliness, connection, empathy. This is adulting. Becoming a human adult, you deal with these things. And then the far part is exponential well-being, what is truly possible for humanity. And I think what's really exciting is many of the contemplative traditions and a lot of the work that you do leads towards this: enhanced mental and emotional capacity, our gifts unlocked, and persistent non-symbolic consciousness, which is the focus of our research, a lot of our research, which is the academic term for enlightenment, awakeness, oneness, transcendence, unity, consciousness. There's about over 200 terms for it. So this is our research on awakening that I'm about to take you through. But first I have to tell you how I got here. As was mentioned, I used to work in video games. And my last position, I ran World of Warcraft China. I operated World of Warcraft China, which is the largest branch of the largest MMORPG in the world. And it was great. I enjoyed it very much. Then I went on a meditation retreat, and I had an awakening. And for those of you who have had that experience, you kind of know, at the end of it, I could not go back to what I was doing. What I found for me personally was that in 10 days, I felt happier than I'd ever felt in my life, and I wasn't afraid. And I was so clear and focused that I wanted to share this with the world, that I wanted to share this with my loved ones. It seemed amazing to me that something could be so close at hand, and something that I had, longed for, really, in my life. And so I changed my life, and I came back to the US. I started the Transformative Technology Lab and Conference with Dr. Jeffrey Martin, and we started a continuation of his research on persistent non-symbolic consciousness. And so, this is a map of the US, but there's actually, these people live all over the world. But this is the way that they experience life. Some of the specifics about it: the ability to focus deeply at will, an experience of flow that's life flow, not task flow, and there's a difference, and a deep, deep inner quiet. This is, I'll let you guys read this for a second, but this is the overall profile of what persistent non-symbolic experience or consciousness feels like. Most of the people who get here work for it through meditation, and you might imagine that they look like this, and they do, but they also look like this, and they look like you. And so what many people also don't realize is that there was another part of Maslow's hierarchy. He studied self-transcendence. He just didn't publish on it widely. And this was the idea that after you've actualized, after you've transformed yourself in all these different ways, there's a place where you realize that the self that you've actualized, you don't need it anymore. And this gets into non-self and all of that. So just to give you a little bit of framework for the first study. So Jeffrey Martin, Dr. Jeffrey Martin, who is my partner, my business partner, he did his PhD on the psychological profile of awakening. He studied 1,200 people over 8 years, all traditions around the world, qualitative and quantitative assessments, some bio data. And what they discovered was that there are essentially 4 locations. This is not a progression path. This is not a lineage. It's not intended to be. It's simply a psychological profile. But the thing that I found so exciting about it is that 2 people in the same lineage who are in different locations, they have less in common than people from different traditions in the same location. So to make it simple, what this showed is it allowed you to compare the experience of a Carmelite nun and a Tibetan Buddhist monk in how they were experiencing reality in terms of emotion, cognition, perception, and sense of self. So psychological measures. What it means is that awakening and enlightenment doesn't belong to any one tradition. It belongs to all of us. And that's really exciting. So this is, I'm going to let you read through a couple of locations really fast. This is location 1. Fundamental sense of okayness kicks in. I'll provide all of this to you guys, so I know I'm going fast. Not really triggered anymore. You trust in how things are. Location 2, it's the beginning of non-duality. Self-thoughts continue to fade. You start to feel like there is a correct way to do things. It's a knowingness. It's the knowingness that people talk about. Location 3, there's one emotion that remains that feels like a combination between love, compassion, joy, and it's subtly dual. And then the last one is location 4, and this is, no thoughts of self. And I have a ton more data, but I'm not going to take you through it. Instead, I'm going to show you the second study we did. So that first study only showed people who were already in the state. What we needed to know in order to find a way to hack it was we needed to find people who were not in this state and push them into the state. So we developed a program where the purpose was to see if we could create that trigger. And this is an overview of it.
For millennia, mankind has asked the question, who am I? In pursuit of an eternal truth. Across all cultures, all traditions, and all philosophies. With dedicated practice and commitment, these explorers of the inner world would spend a lifetime just to catch a glimpse of an answer to this question. And those who caught more than just a glimpse found something indescribable. Something beyond the limitations of the self. An awakening into a persistent state of inner peace and well-being. A state of flow, joy, and ease. Yet there are no guarantees for the adventurous. There are those who seek but do not find on this quest, dedicating years to practices that yield no fruit, having no map for awakening. But in 2006, a group of scientists set out to research the phenomenon of awakening. Traveling across 6 continents and studying various lineages, they cataloged over 1,000 methods. And over the course of 10 years and 9 trials, they isolated 26 as the most effective. A millennia of wisdom, distilled into 26 practices, combined with the best methods that Western psychology has discovered for lasting happiness and well-being. The Finder's Course Protocol is the first roadmap to awakening, integrating ancient wisdom with modern science to safely, quickly, and reliably bring about transformation. Built using gold standard psychological measurements and the latest biometric technologies, the subjective experience of awakening has finally been made objective. And most importantly, the protocol works. 99% of participants reported significant improvements in key scientific metrics of well-being: reduced stress, reduced negative emotion, decreases in depression, increases in overall happiness, increased sense of life meaning, even significantly improved relationships. And for the majority, 73% of participants experienced what can only be described as an awakening, a shift into a persistent state of inner peace and lasting well-being. Now, for the first time in history, those who seek can truly find.
So the purpose of this was in order to get the data and to do the data capture. We recently did our stats where we divided it by location so we can see where we tend to drop people out in. This is on 421 people. It turns out after people have an awakening, they're less interested in doing 4.5 to 6 hours of measures. It's kind of funny. So this is off of that group, what it looks like. And so the most important thing that we learned is that fit is absolutely important. Awakening is easy, provided that you have the right fit. And so the takeaways that I would leave you with is this. So fit matters a lot. Try something for 7 days. If on the 8th day it's not working, move on. If you're doing something and you loved it and it doesn't seem to be working, it's not, move on. And that fit is essential for transformation. What we're doing now is, over the last year, we just completed it, we've started taking bio data while people are going through the protocol. So that's heart rate variability, galvanic skin response, and EEG. And what we're looking for is the biosignal of awakening. Because the goal, the true goal, would be to develop a simple assessment that people can go through, and then we can immediately direct them to the right type of meditation. Right now, we send people through the gauntlet and see what sticks. But the thing that I think is the most stunning about this work that we've done is that there is a belief that awakening is difficult, and almost everything is designed to, a lot of the things that you've heard talks about awakening as difficult. But we think it's a lot like the 4-minute mile. And it's, again, why I love Mindvalley. But we think it's a lot like the 4-minute mile because before Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, everyone thought it was impossible. And we think the same thing with awakening. So awakening is easy with proper fit, and it's the integration that's hard. So what my dream is that my dream is that awakening becomes a basic skill, that it's a basic skill. And then we can spend all of the challenge and the effort and the things that we work on towards solving the problems facing mankind, for really helping someone develop the skill set to uncover their gift and then work with it. Like, I want humanity to have some new problems and, to get past the unnecessary human suffering. So then the second part, which will be really fast, is the problem with technology is not that it's bad, it's that it's not good enough. What's exciting is that we've entered the age of the brain and the mind. The amount of research that's going into neuroscience and the amount of money that's going into neuroscience, plus what we're now able to pick up off of the massive psychological and behavioral psychological data sets, it's feeding and fueling one another, and we're having greater insights into what it means to be human than ever before. And so with many people, it's like, what are you willing to do to have more blue and less gray? And people are doing it. These are all of the other markets that, the effort, transformative technology, or the desire for change is hidden inside of these markets. So for those of you who teach meditation, this is the increase in searches on mindfulness and the number of people in the US who meditate today, plus those who want to. This was commissioned by a private company. So there's a natural progression for technology where we start off with productivity and efficiency, but then we start to ask, what else can it do for us? This is the question of the day. And so this is what transformative technology is. And it's based on the idea that if technology is a thing that takes what is scarce and makes it abundant, then we should have that for mental health, emotional well-being, and human psychological thriving. We need to have things that are accessible, affordable, and scalable. And so this is what transformative technology does. At my lab, we do basic research, some of which you've seen. We create community, so we have a conference that we do that brings together engineers and neuroscientists and practitioners and healers, all kinds of people. And now this year, big HR and Focus Capital showed up. And our entrepreneurs are creating products that do these three things. And the idea is that you would approach things in a new way. For what we've seen in the research is that different things work for different people. And so I fully expect that people will have a full set of tools, and I think this is what we should be going for. Trans-tech is pushed, like everything else, by the exponential. So artificial intelligence and machine learning and many of the things that Vishen has spoken about in the past. So this is driving it, and it's moving so fast. And other things that are happening, what's really exciting is for the first time, corporate HR and the big private healthcare systems are absolutely invested in preventative health because they're trying to keep the healthcare costs down. So they're interested in bringing in yoga and meditation and many of the types of things that you guys do. And consumer demand, you've seen how it's driving it, and then just general technical progress. So I track these 11 areas of technology. This is what we look at. And on a market map, it looks kind of like this. So I'll get this to you, so don't try to read it. But what it represents is taking out the big anomalies like Facebook and some other people, because even though they're doing a lot of things, they're also innovating in chatbots, and you'll see how that fits in. But this represents $1.6 billion in life-to-date venture investment. So it means that it's moving very, very quickly. And so the way you should think about transformative technology is that it's a new use case. It's a design intention. It's a pivot of current and emerging technology towards the inner development of mankind so that we can have wellness and well-being. And so I just want to show you a few cool things that I really like. So one is emotion recognition and pattern recognition. And so this are, whether it's with voice or face or this group empath, what they do is they have this in the meeting room, and so the group emotional state shows up on the walls. I mean, you may or may not need it, but it's kind of interesting because human beings do so well with feedback. When we find out that something's going on, we're able to fix it. It's why food journals work and other things. And then on the behavior recognition, Ginger.io uses life data to help people who are dealing with depression. If they're about to go into an episode, it can notify them, hey, are you doing okay? If they've started waking up earlier or going to sleep. This is done with permission, by the way, because if you have depression, it's really important to you. It means a lot to you to get past it. Many people don't know Alexa one of the top requests, or in the top third, beginning in about March this year, was Alexa, help me relax. So for those of you who are coaches or Mindvalley looking for new platforms, there's very little on here to do this. But you're seeing depression bots and inspiration bots and people using technology to support their emotional state. We can make great products for this. In addition, there's mood management, behavior change, focus through pills and electrical current stimulation. And Focus at Will is music that you can listen to. I use this product every single day. Then there's wearables. With Trip, you'll be able to download a VR program where you can choose calm or compassion and have an experience that's just about stimulating that feeling in you. It's just extraordinary what's happening. And like one of the people that many people don't know about is this company called Willow. They serve yoga and meditation into 35 of the Fortune 500. Because of that, they serve over 500,000 people in the US. They're one of the biggest players that many people don't know about. And one of the reasons why they're able to do it is they've developed the data backend that big corporate HR needs in order to bring people into corporations. Of course, there's VR, AR. One of the things that's amazing about VR is that studies have already shown the ability for VR to extend your sense of in-group and out-of-group. It's extraordinary. The ability to have empathy, the ability for me to see someone who looks completely different than me, lives in a completely different setting, and to feel and connect to who they are, that's what that's going to do for us. This one's exciting, expanding the capacity, mental and emotional capacity. This woman right here is Mary Lou Jepson. She was one of the people who was instrumental in developing the $100 laptop. So she has a history of miniaturizing things, taking the cost out. She's miniaturizing an fMRI machine, which will revolutionize healthcare. But what it will also do is it will also, with permission, allow brain-to-brain communication. It will allow me to think about something and then airdrop it to you. And that's within our lifetimes. What this will do is one of the skills people will need to develop is they're going to have to become really good visualizers. So what I send to you is, pretty good. So some of the trends you can expect to see is there's going to be a great deal of emotion that's going to show up, emotion recognition. More hardware is going to go into the background. There's a ton of things that are happening, and I have a deliberate reason for showing you all of this tech. I would say this: we can solve the social problem. We can enhance connection and engagement and fulfill human potential. We can do this. We are on the edge of the next age of humanity, and it's incredibly exciting. And that's why I say it's the most exciting time to be alive. It's exciting not just because of all this stuff that's happening, but because of the responsibility, and this is where you guys come in. We're in the moment, the next 15 years, decide if we have more Star Trek, if our future is more Star Trek or more Hunger Games. Like, this is the moment. And to give a little bit of a frame, Joey Ito is the head of the MIT Media Lab. Like, MIT is just crushing it on so many things, but this is his vision of technology, that technology should get us more into nature, more into ourselves than the way that we think about it. And this is Gary Kasperov. He lost to Deep Blue. And what he did on the other side of that is he really dug into artificial intelligence. And his point of view now, and he developed what's called freestyle chess, advanced centaur chess. And that is a human and an AI working together. And he did that because he envisioned if you could combine human experience, our strengths, our intuition, you could have the perfect game of chess. And so I really encourage you to think about your relationship to technology, because my mission and my goal is to amplify people like you. Sapiens says that what makes humanity dominant is not our intelligence or our ability to use tools, but our ability to tell stories and to connect to one another. And these are also the things that you excel in. And these books, if you haven't read these books, read these books. This is interesting. Sense8 was by the people who made The Matrix, which defined a generation. And their point of view was that the connection, human beings become more connected on the neurobiological level. And then Nexus says that it's going to be nanobots. But in any case, these are visionaries that are sort of showing a pathway. So, and I have one more slide. This is it. The takeaways for you is don't be afraid. It just shuts you down. And don't reject. You can't stop it, but you can shape it. You can drive it. You can define what it looks like. Enter the arena. Join the conversation. Demand more of tech. Like, it needs to serve us. Demand it. Expect to have a toolkit. And we need this to solve the other, we need technology to solve the other things that are facing mankind. That's why it's the most exciting time to be alive. And then I'll just leave you with this. This is the last thing. As we move into this new enhanced capacity, the contemplative traditions had something really right. Because we're moving into the ability, within your lifetimes, we will have the ability to turn the knobs and levers of our minds directly. And if at that point we have not developed the spiritual maturity, if we have not actually brought in the end of suffering, then it will be a very dangerous time for us. And so, you know, for a long time, I actually didn't talk. I go into a lot of communities and a lot of tech communities, as you can imagine. There was a period of time where I didn't talk so much about awakening. And then I read Sapiens and Homo Deus, and now I talk about it all the time. Because we must have the end of suffering. They were onto it. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were talking about. And now, as our technology has excelled has accelerated so much, we actually really need it. And so this is why you guys, as people who are on the cutting edge of human development and personal development and spirituality, why you're essential to this future. And this is why I say, don't reject technology. Come in. Bring your gifts to it. Because there is no more nobler use for technology than to bring peace to the minds of mankind. So that's it. Thank you. Oh.